will not be a federal nationwide vaccination mandate, even though both she and President Biden in the last 36 hours seem to say that the policy was under consideration. Let's discuss the COVID confusion with former Biden campaign surrogate Kevin Walling and RNC national spokesperson Paris Dennard. Great to have you both with us tonight.
Hey, Shannon, good to be with you.
Okay, so let's do this. I want to reset the question and answer with Brett Baer today with the CDC director, Dr. Walensky, and we'll go from there.
Are you for mandating a vaccine on a federal level?
You know, that's something that I think the administration is looking into. It's something that I think we're looking to see approval of from the vaccine.
So that's what she said. Here's what the president said yesterday on that topic.
It's still a question whether the federal government can mandate the whole country. I don't know that yet.
So it sounds like there's been a discussion or there is some kind of consideration. But tonight, the CDC director in a tweet clarifying, saying, to clarify, there will be no nationwide mandate. I was referring to mandates by private institutions and portions of the federal government. There will be no federal mandate. Now, Paris, does that line up with the way you heard Brett pose the question and her answer it?
Not at all, Shannon. What you see is just more confusion coming out of this White House. With all due respect to the CDC director, she's not the president of the United States. And the president is sending out mixed messages. The White House press team from the podium is sending out mixed messages that is confusing the American people. But what I do know is that the American people cannot suffer under more draconian lockdowns and mandates that are going to stifle American prosperity, growth, and the American dream for so many small businesses that need to have this country open up. We cannot go back and revert back to where we were and totally collapse this economy. And these confusing messages are not helping the confidence in the American people. That's why you saw a recent ABC poll that said the majority of the Americans 6 months into this administration are pessimistic about the future, because the direction of this country is not going in a way that gives anyone confidence, optimism, or makes them feel empowered or have confidence in what this administration is saying. It's confusing and it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, the CDC, I think, would have to admit, even it has been confusing. There have been changes. There's certain disagreements with the WHO and what it sees as good policy. Things have changed. We're going to learn things. We are learning more as we get through this pandemic. But to those points that you made, Jonah Goldberg from the Dispatch said this, backsliding into mask mandates was the headline of the piece. He says, meanwhile, there are real costs to backsliding back into masking and, heaven forbid, school closures, lockdowns, etc., which some people are already agitating for. This stuff is terrible for kids, infuriating for adults, and rational or not profoundly disruptive of social peace and trust. So, Kevin, how does the administration manage that along with this confusing messaging?
Yeah, Shannon, it's a good question. I think the CDC certainly needs to clarify a lot of this. And this goes back to the Trump administration with mixed messages coming out of Atlanta and Dr. Redfield and now Dr. Walensky in terms of mask policies, shutdown policies, things like that. But the president has been very, very clear. No more shutdowns for this country, just as the economy is roaring back, just as we saw 6.5% growth, just as we saw more jobs created in the last 6 months than any administration. We cannot afford to shut down this economy. The president is not going to do that. And we cannot afford to shut down any of our schools. Children over the age of 12 need to be vaccinated in this country. We saw 3 million new first doses administered this week. So we're on the right track in terms of an upward trend in terms of the first vaccinations. Kids need to get vaccinated. We need to keep the schools open, and we can't shut down the economy.
This is how Robert Schmad writes about it over at the Washington Examiner. This is an opinion piece. He says COVID cases are surging, but COVID deaths are not. Though daily infections have risen dramatically in the U.S., up roughly 200% in the last month, there's been no corresponding upswing in the number of deaths caused by the virus. Now that the risk of death carried by a COVID-19 infection is similarly low, we must accept that a mere multiplicity of cases does not on its own justify restrictions. And Paris, a lot of people would say that proves the vaccine is doing the job. If the job is avoiding serious illness and death, it should be a very infinitesimal percentage of what happens with people who are vaccinated. So the case is not tracking with deaths as they did in the past. Can we take any hope in that?
Well, I think that's good news, but what we have to look at is the facts and the data and the science. But unfortunately, what we've seen from the Biden-Harris administration is an administration that is not listening to the facts, the data, and the science in terms of their policy making. They've been listening to polls, politics, and unions. We have to have the facts and the data back up the mandates that they put forth, because at the end of the day, when you look at the high unemployment, when you look at the rising cost of gasoline and the inflation that's at actually middle class income tax increase, the American people cannot afford to go back. And we have to have these policies rooted in facts and the data. And the facts and the data do not match up to where a lot of the things that this administration has been saying.
All right. Well, we know that you mentioned unions, and now there is a split between some unions in this administration saying they don't want it mandated for their members. So that's going to be a sticky issue, and we know the legal challenges are coming too. Kevin and Paris, have a great weekend. Great to see you both.
Thanks, Shannon. Have a great weekend.
You too. Inflation fears